Welcome from Las Vegas, Nevada, the host city of NAB 2014. We're here on the 45th floor of the Trump International Hotel. This is Cinema 5D on the Couch, presented by B&H, the professionals source, Vitech Videocom, Tools on Air, and Zeiss.
Welcome to the fourth episode of Cinema 5D on the Couch. Today we have a session with a few camera manufacturers and talk about new cameras introduced at NAB. We'll start out with the newer kids on the block. So this is JH from Kinfinity, Kineraw, and this is Stuart Ashton from Blackmagic Design.
Hi.
After that we will we'll have two representatives from Canon and Sony, but we'll start out with these two. So. Kineraw, your first camera is now almost 2 years old, and you've kept innovating. You've brought out new cameras as well. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us something about your new products?
This year, at the beginning of this year, we launched and announced two new cameras, Kinfinity 4K and Kinemax 6K. And Kinfinity 4K is a new camera that uses the 4K platform and upgraded from our Kineraw Mini before, and the Johnny and the Tesla cameras and last year. And so because you know that 4K production and 4K delivery is trend and it's reality. So we upgrade our cameras into 4K platform. So Kinfinity 4K is first Kineraw cameras features 4K. And in the NAB we show that they're working nearly very close to production.
Okay. Yes,
and it will be launched in it'll be shipped at the end of this month to Chinese customers, and it's under the Kinemax 6K. We did not bring the sample cameras, and it will be shipped after 2 months, I think. Yeah, and everything goes well.
So you upgraded the existing cameras with a 4K sensor, basically?
4K sensor.
Okay.
Yes. The Kinfinity 4K, the same sensor with the previous models, and the 6K employs a whole new sensors.
So you can record ProRes now. You're not forced to shoot RAW anymore.
No. In camera, cannot record ProRes. Mm-hmm. But they can.
So that's very similar to Blackmagic.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. And we at the same time, Kinfinity and Kinemax, they can record cinema DNG and Cineform RAW MOV. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they can record cinema DNG now. And at the same time, you can use our offline software, KineStation, to transcode the cinema DNG into Cineform or into ProRes.
Okay.
Yes. So we provide a different codec for the post workflow. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Blackmagic Design also surprised us again with even two new cameras this year. Nobody was expecting that to have.
You honestly were surprised?
Well, I mean, people were joking the day before the show that there will be new Blackmagic cameras, but nobody believed it because we already thought, well, there's a 4K now. What's next? So what can you tell us about the new product?
Yeah, I think that you're right. There was somewhat of a surprise with what we announced. I guess that for us, we've been in the camera market now for 2 years, and we're starting to really build a portfolio of cameras that covers everything from the pocket cinema camera up through the 2.5K model and then the 4K model. What we started to find with those cameras was they were starting to evolve in terms of third-party gear being put onto those cameras, and what we always envisaged as a small handheld camera started to become a lot larger in size. So for this show, what we did is we started to look at two distinct areas of the market, one being studio cameras and live production. And then the second camera we looked at was trying to take that camera with all those accessories and start to build it into a full-size body of our own. So we've got two different cameras that we're really talking about. First one being the Ursa. This is the full body camera, which is got a 4K sensor in. Is Ultra HD, but with a 35mm global shutter in there. That's the one that a lot of interest has come about just purely because of the versatility of it and the fact that the camera somewhat looks at these these full-size cameras in a slightly different light. In terms of we work around zones, so we've got an audio monitoring station and we've got like an assist station, and we've got this fold-out 10-inch 10-inch monitor as well, with a removable turret so that you can upgrade obviously things like the lens mount, and further down the line we can change sensors in the camera too. And then we've got the studio cameras, which are the live cameras. These again have a 10-inch screen. We've got a HD and an Ultra HD version, both of which with micro 4/3 mounts. But the great thing about those is they integrate perfectly with our A10 production switches, which means that they also receive talkback and tally, and you can actually control the CCD of those cameras directly from an A10 too. So those are kind of the two cameras that we've really pushed hard this show, and hopefully they'll live up to the expectations.
So the Ursa has the same sensor as the 4K Blackmagic 4K?
That's correct, yeah. I mean, obviously we've been working hard to look at the ergonomics and also look at the sensor, but also look at flexibility, as I say, further down the line. So at the moment, the sensor that we're running and we're very happy with is the 4K sensor. But further down the line, we could potentially change that out and put a higher a sensor in there with maybe wider dynamic range or even faster frame rates. Currently, the actual 4K sensor does about 60 frames per second, but the body's capable of doing 120.
In 4K?
That's right.
What is it recording on?
So it actually records on CFast 2 cards, which has been optimized for video. These are something that have started to really kind of sort of come into fruition really this kind of last few months. What we're starting to see is that the interest around that as a medium is quite good for us, because one of the things that we've never really done as a business is start to build things like our own proprietary recording hardware. So we want to take something that's available to everybody, and those can be picked up pretty much from anywhere.
So this 10-inch screen is something we haven't seen in any camera so far. It's like it's as big as the iPad.
That's right.
I think. The first question that came to mind when I saw it is like, is it the iPad screen? Because it looks very much like it.
It looks very similar, but it's not. No.
It's sourced elsewhere. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It isn't a touch screen. So we've got 3 monitors on the camera, and this one isn't touch screen. The resolution of it's 1920 1080, but the color in it's fantastic, and the viewing angle's great. You do have an option as well. There is a HD SDI output on the top of the camera, which gives you the ability to actually integrate an EVF if you want to.
Well, I think you need to if you try to operate it on the shoulder. Otherwise,
that's right.
You have this in front of your head.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, we can cut 2 holes in it so you can see right through it. But yeah, I guess that the way we're working with this camera is really to develop a collaborative workflow with other people around the camera, and that 10-inch monitor means that it means that you don't have to now go out and buy an additional monitor to plug into the camera.
And the studio camera is basically looks like an iPad with a lens attached, and it doesn't have an internal recorder, right? So it's only SDI out.
Yeah. So it's in terms of live production. We see this as a multi-cam setup really, where you may be working with 2 or 3 cameras in.
It would be perfect for our show here.
Absolutely,
you
yeah.
use a lot of Blackmagic Design equipment, so it's only the cameras missing.
I mean, again, the fact that this camera is very different than what you usually see. When we design and we develop products, what we try to do is really think about the ergonomics. It's not just about creating something that essentially is the same as everything else. The aim is to try and think about the way in which people work and what people are looking for. And what feedback we got around studio work was that people wanted a large screen because they wanted to feel part of what it was that they were filming. So it's kind of like the world's smallest studio camera, but with the largest viewfinder in the world. So the kind of the match goes quite well. It's
good that you mentioned feedback. We got a lot of questions from people regarding Blackmagic cameras, and most people just want to know, because owners of existing Blackmagic cameras want to know when do they finally get a firmware upgrade so they are actually able to delete clips or format their card in camera. Sure. People have been waiting for this for quite a while, and I think it's pretty essential. Is this on the horizon, or? So we are actually going to have a firmware release after the show at some point near after. That's going to incorporate things like the Cinema DNG 4K for the 4K production camera. There's a few other bugs that we're going to fix as well, and a few additional features that you'll see and be announced shortly after. In terms of formatting the cards, I mean, we obviously listen to all the feedback that we get, and we look into those things, but for that at the moment we can't guarantee an answer or a resolution immediately. But all the feedback that we get, we obviously look over and we try and do what we can. Because the problem is, if you're out in the field shooting with a camera, if you don't lug your computer around all the time, you can't just get the stuff off. I mean, you could. sometimes there's just a shot that wasn't right and you want to delete it in camera. You don't want to be waiting until you get to a computer. So I think this is something that people really need to have in production. So
yeah, I think with the Ursa camera, the new one we've developed, I think what's interesting is that some of the feedback again that we've picked up over the course of the last 2 years. I think that when you when you start to design something new, and all of us will know with developing cameras that you're never going to produce something that's absolutely perfect for everybody. And what we do is we listen to that feedback and we try and do our best to put that into maybe an existing model, or if we can't do it within an existing model, then what we'll do is we'll consider that for a future model. Yeah. But all the feedback that we get, and we get plenty of it, we make sure that we listen to.
We tested the Blackmagic 4K, and I think we had some issues with it because we had like a few dead pixels, and also on the second unit we received. We heard from some other people who had the same problems. How did you react to that? Are there problems in the production process, or how we resolved that?
Well, in terms of the cameras that we've got out into the marketplace, we've shipped a lot of cameras, and I think that when you're talking about the volume of cameras that we ship, there are always going to be in the early stages some things that maybe come to light with a handful.
Very early.
Yeah, one of the things that we're starting to see now is that the 4K camera, especially the footage that's going online and the work that people are doing with it, is really creating a buzz. I think that we're actually happier with it now it's in the market than maybe we were before we released it, because we felt that the camera would only appeal to a certain part of the market. But what we've started to find is that people have really embraced it and embraced the technology and the images that people are pulling off. And certainly when you're working with such a high resolution, when you take that into a color correction environment, you're able to really punch them images. And it's a camera that for $3,000 is really kind of grasping people's imagination.
It is. But how do you react to people who complain about the light sensitivity of the camera?
Well, the camera was never meant to be a low light camera. I mean, that's I suppose the first thing. The camera is native 400 ASA with a maximum of 800 ASA, and we feel that it performs well in low light for the type of camera that it is. I think that when we announced the 2.5K camera the year before, and we talked about 13 stops of dynamic range with a wider ASA, people were expecting it to perform very similarly. But we were very honest from the outset in terms of how that camera will function. And certainly when we're looking at the stuff that's being shot, the stuff that's been shot in low light is actually very good from our point of view.
Mm-hmm. So the pattern issue that we had in the low lights is resolved. Like we had an issue with I think it was ISO 800. Sure. We could see the pattern of the sensor actually.
Yeah. If you drive the camera in low light quite hard, then then potentially you're going to reach the limits. But I think that in terms of certain issues that you mentioned before in terms of firmware fixable things, we can rectify. But you've got to appreciate as well that when you put a sensor in a camera, there is only so much that sensor can do. Yeah. From our point of view, we're happy with those. We're happy with what we're seeing, and certainly from the numbers of what we've sold, we're getting a lot of good feedback.
Mm. So with the Kinefity, obviously a much smaller market, I think, or at least you're a smaller company, so you cater to a smaller market, but it's probably more specialized. What kind of people are interested in the Kinefity? Who are the people who buy your camera?
Actually, and maybe like the BMDCC and BMPC and more production company, especially small production companies. Maybe they're tired of the DSLR's cameras, and they want to try the real cinema cameras, and so they choose our cameras because our cameras is designed for the cinema functions, such as over crank, under crank scenes, and also nearly no FPN, nearly no FPN, and so for the highlights and the low shadow, you cannot find hard even the image is very, I think it's perfect. Yeah, especially the 4K camera Kinfinity. And last Sunday we took the sample cameras in the Las Vegas and we captured at daylight day and light at night, and make a small, short video. And I think the color, and we improve the color, and also it will show it's more sharper than before. So we will upload it to on the website, our website, and also the Vimeo, and you will see it. Yeah, and
so it's mostly people in cinematography. It's not broadcast, obviously. It's more people who have the time and can put effort into post-production.
Yes, and for the users, and also for the partition users, maybe they will not use our cameras as a production. Or, I mean the TV, like the BMD's production camera usage to use directed to the TV production. They use our cameras. Maybe you use for the MV, for making MV and short film or feature film, something like that. It's not like the that things. So I think our cameras, Kinmini or Kinimax, or even the previous models, they are more serious cinematographers' cameras.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the market is really clearly moving into 4K, especially from the camera side. I mean, Blackmagic as a company who's heavily in post-production, how can you see, because the post-production world hasn't caught on yet. I mean, there's a lot of post-production houses where you go with your 4K image from whatever camera, and they will just have to, shrink it down to 2K in order to be able to actually do proper post-production on it. They just not have the capabilities yet, and it's slowly catching on. But where do you see 4K in finishing in the near future, or is it more like 4K for HD or 2K delivery?
I think from my point of view, we're seeing Ultra HD across a much wider range than maybe we saw 12 months ago. I think in terms of catching up, you're absolutely right. I think that things are picking up pace in terms of people wanting to access Ultra HD equipment and work in an Ultra HD environment. I think that they're obviously, in terms of things like storage capabilities and the physicality of moving media around, still hinders or still worries a few people. But those are being rectified very, very quickly. There's conversation obviously out there in terms of delivery over things like 6 gig SDI, and we talk on our booth about 12 gig SDI as well. But when you move into various different spaces, things even like live event and the AV spaces, 4K is already there. I think that for us, we see that the future of it is very bright, and we've certainly committed ourselves to it as a company. All of our products now have 6 gig SDI on. All the new products that we're showing at the show are all Ultra HD, and that pretty much completes our entire lineup now for Ultra HD. But I think that, I guess what frightens a few people is that it's just that kind of leap a little bit to something new. And you've always got to be very careful when you move in that direction, that you don't take your eye off the people who are not ready yet. And that's why we've always tried to consider that in every technology that we create or every technology that we work towards, we always ensure that, for instance, we're not forgetting the HD crowd, we're not forgetting the SD crowd, because wherever you move in the globe, there's always somebody who's working on something that maybe people thought phased out 5 years ago.
So can you actually, I don't even know, can you switch your camera or your camera, can you switch them to HD?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's without the crop mode, or?
Yeah, so in the Ursa there's the ability to record in HD.
Without the crop?
That's right. I believe it's a direct reduction, sort of 4-time reduction. In terms of the studio camera, you actually have an option when you buy whether you want a HD or an Ultra HD one.
Yeah, and Kinmini or Kinimax also is a little bit different from the other cameras. These features for even the 4K sensors, 4K recording, and they have 2K or Full HD mode, and we have 2 working mode as full sensors or crop mode, record 2K. The first one is we use our internal binning. To process, use every pixels on sensor into 2K, and the second one as a crop mode. So it's the sensor. It's just employs the center of the sensor, and it's still 2K because you use the 4K sensor. So it turns into a super 16 millimeters cameras, so that you can use some other lenses, such like the Super 16 lens or B4 lens. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Is that feature available on the Blackmagic cameras?
I'm not sure. The way you were talking, then I was like I was watching the numbers in the Matrix. I'm not sure in all honesty.
Crop mode.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that the two modes in which you shoot within the Ursa are effectively, a HD and an Ultra HD mode. I'm not sure how the interpolation of that happens within the camera. Yeah. There's much more smart guys in Blackmagic who can deal with those sorts of questions.
Okay, gentlemen, we'll have to wrap it up here because we have Canon and Sony waiting behind the scenes as well. Thank you, and yeah, see you at the show.
Thanks
okay,
very
thank
much.
you, Nino.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.